Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case, looking at the latest news and discussions on the matter. We're catching up with what Jan Fiorillo has had to say in recent time, and as well in regard to, in a way, calling me out. So I'm going to be responding back to the comments and more, and on top of it, acknowledging other people's comments from a particular video I didn't get the chance to respond on, just because of doing other stuff in between. So it's kind of like a catch-up session with interesting discussions, conversations, and depending on the overall theme or the most magnetizing effect of importance, it'll probably be determined by the title of the videos you'll be able to see on the screen when watching it. For those that are currently here during the live premiere, share your thoughts, reactions in the live chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. And if you do want to drop any comments, questions below, feel free to do so under the video. Can respond back later, and it'll help with pushing that video out there so more people can see it. If you want to catch up on recent coverage by me, the full playlist and coverage top right up there where the eye symbol is, with some additional videos such as the one from last night. And if you want to support the channel in a more practical alternative way, down below in the comment section there'll be a pinned message by me with the PayPal link. With that all being said, we're just going to kick the video off and start looking at the comments. Here we are. I've got it to the latest comments, and we're going to start from the bottom, and I think we're starting off with what Jan has to say within the comment thread. First of all, what does Lisa say? I have to correct myself. I said 6:20 a.m, but I went back and checked. The sheriff arrived at 6:24 a.m, in which case the sheriff would have seen Caden, his red Jeep, and the other boys. That's because Caden arrived at scene at 5:21, not 6:21. But, you know, based off the different timelines of others who are saying Caden's out by an hour and 15 minutes, is there anyone whatsoever that was present at 6:21 but actually saw Caden Pressey at the scene? This is what's kind of interesting. There is a bit of a disconnect, and it might have been acknowledged already. I've not really looked at it this way, but I can kind of understand what Lisa is getting at. But the reference of a sheriff, Jeremiah Wilson, or the undersheriff Jimmy Williams, guys like that, and anyone else in between, did they physically see Caden Pressey at 6:21 up to 6:30? Has that ever happened? Has it ever been stated like that based off a true time given? Because other people, like within the case, or parents, guardians of the partygoers, have said Caden Pressey could be wrong, he's doing it on purpose, he's lying, or he's made a mistake. But, you know, it'd be nice to hear it from a level of authority that was present at the time and said, yep, this was the case. See, the problem is, the only other person where it's kind of crept into an extent of that conversation dialogue with Tyler Hardy, but with our ongoing discussions back and forth, and Caden as well, basically they didn't see each other. And if they didn't see each other, you could put that argument across because they were there at different times. So it still makes Caden's timeline correct, just based off that. But was there anybody else besides Tyler Hardy, including police or volunteer firefighters, that actually saw Caden present at a later time and not earlier? It could go such a long way, but I've yet to see it. And depending on the time as well, later on, more witnesses about, more people on site, on scene, more eyes. It would have been interesting. But Beth says, great catch, we think alike. And here's one of the first comments by Jan Fiorillo. It has been edited. Hi Lisa. Terrell volunteer firefighters arrived at 6:14, 6:15. Undersheriff Jimmy Williams arrived at 6:18. That's correct. And Jeremiah Wilson arrived at 6:24. Yep. Those are the official times of first responders. Yep, fair enough. Skippy. Wouldn't it have been Jimmy Williams' undersheriff responsibility to control the scene and not let any civilians to be present at the scene, since he was the first LE on scene? Jack's dad saw Noah's tooth on the ground, so he's that close to Noah's body. True. In terms of who got there first between Caleb and Renee Millan, because we did hear from what Renee said, she was ordered to move on or so, couldn't stick around. How long could Caleb stick around for then? Depends who got there first. Okay. So he should never have been allowed to be at the scene at all. Volunteer firefighters were the first responders, so they were focused on Noah, but Jimmy got there just a few minutes later. It's odd that neither Jimmy or Jeremy, or even the volunteer firefighters, had a tarp or sheet in their trunk to cover Noah. Were they in their official vehicles or private ones? What else do we have? Thanks, Jan. It's very helpful. So who are the volunteer firefighters that arrived at 6:14 that would have to be Caleb Newton and his father, Bubba, correct? Does anyone know who Officer 24 is? He called into dispatcher saying he was Terrell, volunteer firefighter, on his way to the scene. Jan Fiorillo says, another huge conflict and compromise to the integrity of the scene was for the landowner and grandfather of the social host to be allowed on scene and in an official capacity as a first responder, and not only that, retrieve a personal bedsheet from his home to cover the victim with. Sheriff Wilson told me that he replaced the bedsheet with an official covering when he arrived. He also told me that he cleared the scene and set a perimeter after he got there at 6:24. Right. The first official volunteer firefighters there at 6:14 was Cash Alsop. As for Cash Alsop, he did get in trouble at a later point in life, back in 2024, I think, supposedly to do with fitting a camera or cameras in, I think, female restroom toilets. Got caught or something like that. I don't know what's happened since, but I know people were talking about it in the past. But besides Cash, Jason Duke, Cole Duke, then Undersheriff Jimmy Williams at 6:18, then Sheriff Jeremiah Wilson at 6:24, Caleb Newton and his dad Daryl Newton arrived next, as well as other Terrell volunteer firefighters, to include the landowner Bub Wilcoxon in an official capacity, who is also grandfather of social host party residents. OHP Zachary Wright arrived at 7:31, much later. Noah's dad Victor and brother Dalen Presgrove arrived next, and before the medical examiner's investigator. I can't recall off the top of my head when ODOT, Oklahoma Deputy of Transportation, arrived to close down the highway and help redirect traffic. Additional OHP and OSBI also went to the scene. And the ODOT is a very important factor in this because it could determine whether Caden Pressey's timeline is correct or not. Some more reactions. Oh wow, Cash, Jason Cole, I can't believe I've never heard these names before. I have to some extent, but only small scale. Response-wise, and then Jan just suddenly jumps in out of nowhere 15 hours ago, amidst the other conversation that was ongoing. And Jan says, unfortunately, I won't be commenting further on WarLike Wrath's channel. I've made a couple of comments recently where Andrew has reported errors and I offered the correct explanation and information. Andrew has instead not corrected the record and deleted my comments. How dare you accuse me of that? There is absolutely no evidence or proof of me deleting comments, nor would I ever want to delete your comments, whether they be positive, negative, helpful, or not. I leave them up so people can witness and see the comments. So you, Jan Fiorillo, have made a big false claim there, and you have no evidence whatsoever to back it up. How embarrassing. So we're off to a great start already. Jan says, not only that, he is claiming that I am deleting my own comments, which is not true. So the thing is, Jan, once again, selective hearing. I suggested, could there be a possibility that comments may have been deleted or adjusted? Not saying it with absolute confidence. It was difficult to find some of your comments previously because at times they could be scattered about, whether they be in direct response to me or somebody else. Other times they're just laying about in the comment section. You know, like when you, or with anyone who may respond back to somebody else, but not through the comment thread. So it's harder to track. But there have been some times where Jan, besides comments on videos, more so in the live chat, a few comments deleted. I've seen it with my own eyes. The live chat obviously different to the comment section down below, just for clarity, but other people have done the same thing. Sometimes I've done it as well to my own comments in the live chat because I've misspelt it. I typed something in wrong, and it's just undoing a mistake. That's all it is. No big deal there. But what else do we have with what Jan is getting at here? Jan says, Andrew is pissed at me because I posted my public statement correcting the record on another channel, with a question mark. So Jan doesn't actually know what she's really talking about here, or knows the actual context behind it, because she's questioning it herself. Well, that's not good, is it? Jan says, I didn't realise he required submission, obedience and exclusivity for fair treatment. Jan Fiorillo, what are you on about? Then she says, as if Andrew would have posted it, Andrew wants to play up and into the continued dehumanisation, ridiculing, punching down and lies about me from some of his live chats bullies. Then that is where his information will be fed to him from. Been happening for a while now. I don't condone that kind of mocking type behaviour directed at anyone, not just me. But when you defame a victim's advocate supported by victim's family, you're only harming others and definitely not helping you here for clicks and money. Doubt this comment will stay up for long either. So Jan Fiorillo, assuming, presuming, jumping the gun in an impetuous way, kind of expecting that I'm going to delete your comment. No. Your comment is still here, and you can still see it. But besides that, it appears that Jan has posted it again, almost like spamming her comment. But I know it's probably not done with intent. It can happen on YouTube where you post a comment, it does nothing, so you click again and again, and then later it's done it 5 times. It's like a YouTube glitch. But for Jan to use the fancy wording of WarLike Wrath wants to play up into the continued dehumanization and ridiculing of others, I think we're going a little bit over the top there, Jan, because there are many other humans out there more problematic and doing a lot more harm in this case over time. And it does just so happen, Jan Fiorillo, that who you surround yourself with, some of them have done it themselves. But your own self, your own worth and personality may be of a better level than people you may surround yourself with. But I know some people, not me, have said, well, birds of a feather flock together, true colours are shown. Who knows? But we'll get to it a bit later, because it is kind of interesting. Skippy says to Jan, I'm sorry to see you leave this channel. I've enjoyed reading your post and appreciate your response to my questions. Hopefully we'll come across each other again online when Noah's case is resolved. Take care and keep up the fight for justice for Noah. This is very, very interesting. And then Lisa says, oh no, I'm so sorry to hear this. I'm very sorry to hear about everything you've gone through since the beginning trying to help Noah. It's very frustrating, I know. But you're a starseed. Okay, well, we're going on there. Be worth it in the end. Okay. So that's what Jan Fiorillo had to say in regard to that area. We'll see if there's any additional comments too. Sadie, hope your day is good. It's reasonable. Shout out to Sadie. Thanks for watching the videos. And much appreciated. As well, Sadie says, I don't think anybody was focused on who was coming up and who was getting out of what vehicle. I think they were focused on Noah, which they should have been. I don't think anybody was focused on who was coming up or getting out of what vehicle. Skippy. It was a very traumatic and shocking situation, so agree that the focus was on Noah, not others at the scene. In retrospect, the first responders, whether they were volunteer or not, should have controlled the scene better and not allowed civilians to linger about. Yeah? And with some of the previous conversations, what we just looked at before, it's key. Sourwood, thank you for your continued coverage. Much appreciated. Shout out to Sour. It's good about your hair. Beth, I'm following what you are putting down with the third group. This third group is working for the dark side. No. The third group is not working for the dark side whatsoever. More like playing for the dim side in its own league. Beth, playing to be on the light side, you call them, well, they've been busted out and you can remain now on the dark side with Donna Bond. Nope. In terms of the third group that I'm referring to, I'm not mentioning Donna Bond. She's not a part of the third group. I know who's a part of the third group. I know very well. One day at a time. Balanced video. Good job. That's good to see, of course. Shout out. It's good that people still see that balance. Not everyone can, though. Victor, maybe I'm wrong about the Texas boys, but how would Ellie give this information to Robin Smith saying Texas boys are cleared? How exactly? EP, I'm wondering the same thing. What level of communication has really gone on? So does Robin Smith have a list from the LE who is cleared and who isn't cleared from the case? It would be nice to know, wouldn't it? That one girl, I highly doubt it. LE will release a certain information as they see fit. Some techniques used by investigators precisely designed for a specific purpose. Seems very odd she gets certain information saying individuals are cleared. But isn't it kind of odd how Jack Newton will receive certain information from Zachary Wright or police in general about a possible cause of death and a possible time of death and some other things along the way, but then Noah Presgrove's victim family get none of that? Why does Jack receive key intel from police but the actual victim's family don't? What the hell's going on there? It's a bit all over the place, isn't it? Skippy. This brings up even more questions. Who in LE or OHP told her that? Was that the officer speaking officially or just sharing their thoughts, which would be unprofessional and unethical? Was it the same officer who told Jack that Noah died at 4 a.m? Was it the same police guy that told Jack that how Noah could have fallen out? That'd be Zachary Wright then. Jen, I have missed your videos for almost 2 weeks, but catching up. I feel like I've missed so much. Keep up the good work. Appreciate that. But yeah, shout out to Jen. I mean, I know previously some people have said, oh, we've not really missed much. Well, it depends how you look at it, because I remember some random person previously that came back and was like, oh, still nothing's changed. And I was like, well, have you not seen the videos of the Snapchat post of Mikey Lair, that bed one? Some of the bits and bobs along the way. Quite important, I'd say. EP, usually they have a suspect or a person of interest to clear. No one has been named as either. The thing is, everyone is speculating since Noah's friends from the party know they didn't do anything. They're also speculating. But then you get people saying they're pushing a narrative. Not true. They're trying to understand what the heck happened. Yeah, but people can push a narrative in terms of manipulating words. It's okay to theorize and come up with ideas and try and think what could have happened and the possibilities. But when people start turning theories, ideas into facts, bold words and statements, comes across as if it did happen and that person is responsible. And then when other members of the general public hear that stuff, they'll be thinking, oh, is that really true? And then they'll believe in it. But there was no evidence in the first place to support it. People just push a bit too hard at times in an unnatural way, and it undoes it in the end. EP, Beth has me blocked, but Beth, you say the most ridiculous things. I got news for you. I go by evidence, and I'm on the side of the truth for Noah. You constantly say inaccurate information. You are the dark side. That one girl says, Beth has me blocked too, which is a good thing. I personally have a few choice words for her. She literally takes what she hears and runs with it. No evidence, no proof whatsoever. She just goes with whatever certain people say as solid facts. But, at times, people from the light side have, the certain outlooks, and we'll get to that a bit later. Sunny, thanks again. Greatly appreciate. Can't wait for Noah's updates, family. I've missed your live premieres lately, catching up. Thank you for the continued coverage. You're welcome. Appreciate you being here. Carl, What do I need to do to graduate? Well, we've seen this comment thread already previously in a previous video. Skippy. Robin Smith says Ellie told her there isn't enough to charge anyone. If they used these words, it implies they have some evidence, but just not enough to charge anyone. Words matter and the situations under which these statements are made also matter. Was it local Ellie or HP that told her that? There have been other statements shared by Ellie and or OHP. Noah died at 4 a.m. that he may have fallen from a vehicle. The biased statements OHP made about Justin when they interviewed Caden whilst he was on a speakerphone in a car, that seemed unethical and unprofessional, the way that the communication went. But on the other end, you could also understand it that if Justin is pushing a bit too hard with police and kind of getting in the way of the police job, the job and role in for them to do their thing, it can cause a bit of conflict and slow one another down. Maybe Ellie was just talking unofficially, or maybe they have a reason to leak some information, but these leaks lead to more assumptions and rumours. Yes, that's what I come up with. They have some evidence of what happened, just not enough. But, you know, if anyone had to guess, what would that some evidence be to say that Noah wasn't alone? What type of evidence do you think? Skippy, is Brylan Sweat the same guy who supposedly got in the shower with Noah after also riding the side-by-side? Well, the thing is, Skippy, we don't actually know if Brylan was on the side-by-side or within it. I'd say it's probably not likely because the timing of it roughly would have been around the time when Caden Pressey said he was asleep, but also Brylan, Mikey and Isaac were asleep. So what other guys would be available for the side-by-side? Well, it could be the Texas boys. It is 5 Texas boys. Robin's made a reference to that. Jack Newton, in terms of the conversations themselves, about 5 to 6 passengers on the side-by-side, you could add one with the other, different points of views, and say it must be the Texas boys then, or a higher chance of that. In terms, though, of the shower and one of Noah's best buddies jumping on in from what Carter Combs had said, who was a witness at the time of the shower event, it is rather interesting because, yeah, people use language and wording differently, but the way it's always been is Noah Presgrove had a best friend, and that best friend was Jack Newton. Best buddy can be the same thing as best friend, correct? Some people may use terms and words amongst others very loosely, and others will use it more strictly when there's more meaning behind it. As I said, people like to throw little words, lines, emoticons all over the place. It loses its meaning and value. That's just the way people are. In terms of a case and situation like this, well, it could be Brylan, a friend to Noah, but not a best friend. It's never really been addressed like that. So we'll see what other people think about it. But besides that, anything happen? What's it? Asked by Noah to get his back. Oh, right. Yeah, I keep hearing about this, but I just don't see any hard evidence. I keep asking, but I don't see hard evidence. I don't see URL links. I don't see screenshots in regard to what? Brylan Sweat and Noah having one another's backs or so in case anything happened. Was on the couch underneath which Mikey's phone was found. Did Brylan Sweat hide it on purpose to mess with Mikey, or is it a coincidence? But I thought it was under Caden Pressey, from what I remember hearing. Why are we talking about Brylan now? Mikey was blaming Noah for taking it, played a slap game with Noah as others did, posted a photo of himself holding lots of cash and his nephew through a married of Kathy Bing. Wait, who's posting photos of himself holding a lot of cash? You talk about Mikey, you talk about Brylan, you talk about Noah, which one? It's a bit all over the place. Right, Victor, WarLike Wrath, thanks for the video. Yeah, put me down as one of those people who needs something from the police to rule out the 5 Texas boys. Okay, fair enough, that's fine. You know, some people want pure hard evidence, that just listening to a witness isn't good enough, and that's okay, I get it. In the Dylan Rounds case, when there wasn't as much, experience or understanding from my point of view, I remember back then, in that first true crime case I covered, and the way people were saying, no, we don't believe it, we need the hard evidence. And for me, at least, I was, not to be taken the wrong way, but I was not easily pleased, but I was understanding when it came to just what people had to say, like the victim's family, when passing on information to the general public, that without hard evidence was enough for me to listen to and acknowledge and understand. And then down the line hard evidence did come out to support it. Maybe it's just that I was on a different wavelength compared to other humans back then, that I can work with less and I can be on the same wavelength with less stuff and it still turns out the right way at the end. But in this particular case now, Presgrove, it really does require more hard evidence because of all the inconsistencies, discrepancies along the way. The more of that, the more true validation you need, as in we need pure, raw, hard evidence. But Justin Roy did leave a comment at the time. Personally, I don't think all the Texas boys were cleared. I think the St. Joe Ho Texas boys were probably cleared because they didn't even attend Sunday night, per a few party goers. So which Texas boys were there Sunday night? My personal opinion, it was the Bowie Texas boys. And who is lying here? Stevie Howard and a few party goers claim Texas boys left at 2 a.m. But if you remember Justin Roy, I swear I saw a comment on Facebook by Stevie Howard saying, once Noah Presgrove walked away from the house, some Texas boys were seen on CCTV footage leaving. I've still yet to be able to find that comment, and it's annoying. Justin says, yeah, Brooke Bounds-Carter and Tim Daniel claim Texas boys went looking for Noah at 4 to 5 in the morning, or so now. So who's telling the truth? As well, Robin Smith in recent time on Facebook had played it down and said that Texas boys did not go out searching for Noah. That's interesting. Justin says, huge contradiction. Did the geofence put a few Texas boys there now? Is that why they're claiming they were still there in over a year? Nobody ever mentioned the Texas boys going to look for Noah until now. Is this more misinformation, or did the geofence catch them out? This is a huge red flag for me personally. And there are people that were there that claimed they were not there. Why are you lying about it? We just want the truth, and the truth should have been told from the very beginning. But it's interesting how, Justin from his own point of view and opinion, that Texas boys, I don't think all of them were cleared. So then how many Texas boys were there in total? Because at least from what Robin Smith says, there was 5 Texas boys cleared. Is that meaning there's more who weren't? There wasn't enough context with Robin's comment there. Dutton, there were several people attending that denied being there, such as Stephanie Milan, who has stated in a comment she was a party girl on the 9th of 2023. Wrath has done several videos about her. The video that I covered in regard to Stephanie Milan, that was through a Snapchat conversation with some random person online asking questions about Stephanie and the party. Stephanie Milan was the one that said Noah Presgrove had no arguments and no beef with anyone. That's funny because we've seen what Caden Pressier said, what Justin Roy said on behalf of his family that witnessed Noah having arguments and yelling at Jack Newton at least once or twice. So if Stephanie was truly at the party, how come she didn't see that stuff happen? And as for that side-by-side rollover, off the top of my head, I think Stephanie was saying it didn't happen or there wasn't any injuries, it wasn't that bad, kind of playing it down. What was Stephanie doing then? Michaela, well, that's resolved now. And Felicia, will anyone ever come forward and tell the truth of what happened to Noah Presgrove? Well, after all this time, still seems to be a bit slow. But you can let me know your thoughts down below for the different comments and whatnot. But, was there anything else that needed to be added on here in general? I'll just go back over it because, some people have joined late to the live premiere and don't rewind back. If you want to pause the video, you can do so. But this is what Jan has had to say just recently, which has kind of come out of nowhere. So in regard back to Jan Fiorillo no longer commenting, and there might have been another comment implying not returning back to watching or so. I guess it depends what happens at the end of the day, because to try and keep up with it all, I think what just people in general need to acknowledge and understand is independent creator doing videos with time, ideas coming about in here personally, and then separate ideas elsewhere, viewer request, trying to keep on top of it all amongst some people that may demand an order and push about and rush for things, then on top of the resistance, the attacks, the harassments, the threats aimed my way. It's a bit of a juggling act, but things come at times and there is a process to it, and when it feels like things have been neglected, other people throw the toys out of the pram, lose their mind, just overreact, over emotional, typical true crime, typical mystery cases. There's always typical overly emotional humans, maybe from more one side than the other. With me, the way I am and how I cover stuff, yes, I am a male, but it is under control, not overly charged, not overly emotional, somewhat balanced, more balanced with time, with the more cases that I cover and the more perspectives and depth within the different cases. That if I return back to an old case now and how I would talk, it would probably be very different to how I was in the past. Maybe in the past I would be a bit more excited and I would jump on in. That might not always be the best thing, of course. But this is the thing. When it comes to true crime related stuff, there's more legal problems and issues when it comes to that type of theme and topic, such as on YouTube, compared to mystery missing person cases gone cold and just open for interpretation where anything is possible. There is a procedure with time, and whilst Jan will have experience doing whatever in real life and in the background, it has been acknowledged on the channel when it's come to her post and updates along the way. And I think Jan Fiorillo unfortunately loses sight of that. But it's a reoccurring theme and pattern with individuals from the light side mixed in with the third group. That the dark side, they are what they are, if you want to call it that. And if people wanted, not me, but if people wanted to say people from the dark side are nasty, cold, bullies, they insult, they're really harsh, have I been on the receiving end of it? No. They've been good with me. And of course, if other people have been on the receiving end in a negative way, I could understand why opinions and outlooks differ. I do understand. I mean, in fairness, in other situations, I've been worse off on the receiving end of people from the light side rather than the dark side, and then people from the light side have been treated better by others of the light side rather than the dark side. It's just different realities for different people, unique to themselves. Could all be true and correct to some extent, but just unique to ourselves. You might be bullied by one group, I'm not, but I might be bullied from a different group which you're a part of. I'm not saying that I'm literally being bullied, but I'm just giving you an example. Just like the situation with Caden Pressey and Tyler Hardy, possibly each individual have seen different things which don't compare with each other, not on the same wavelength. Could be disagreements, could be conflict, but separate the two different realities, two different times possibly, seeing different things, and then a middle factor, middleman, in between the times of when one was present, when one wasn't, and when one was present and then the previous one wasn't anymore, that in between things were adjusted or changed. You know, a person could treat you a certain way, but then they could treat someone else completely different, positive or negative. It just happens. So to return back to what I'm getting at in general is, Jan Fiorillo may have been attacked by Darkside, the clan. That's unfortunate if that's the case. I think what Jan Fiorillo really needs to understand and get into here is that along the way, if the clan has fed material to me, and if from their point of view or somebody else's, that the material being fed was done with a level of venom to portray Jan in a very bad, negative light, on top, more so because context is missing, well, when the material has finally come to me and I've done a video, I've still managed to pick out positives. I've still managed to say positive things about Jan Fiorillo at times, even when her back is up against the wall, when there is supposed material or screenshots which paint her in a bad light or in a dodgy way. But I didn't go all in on that outlook of Jan, but I mentioned positives. But all Jan seems to focus in on is, oh, the negatives more so towards me or partially towards me and elsewhere. And that's really very unfortunate, but it does appear to be tunnel vision behaviour, just like with tunnel vision selective hearing, that it wasn't cleared up as in they acknowledged, but I basically set the record straight in regard to a previous conversation that came about. And there is a video of it anyway, explaining it in detail. But at the time, with what I was getting at, Jan Fiorillo just did not see, acknowledge or hear. And then when she did actually re-quote what I was getting at, and then I said something back, they still didn't understand. It's just an absolute breakdown in communication. Categorically, it's an absolute catastrophe in terms of a language barrier, and that will never change. Other humans down the line and in the past have had language barriers with me. Hence why at times I in life am one of the most misunderstood individuals upon this planet. It is what it is. It's just the way humans operate. It's the way they are, how they act, how they behave, what they see, what they hear. It can be limited at times. And if I use different wording, if I use different language, if my tone of voice is different, if my facial expressions are stiff, it just leads to misunderstanding. And there's only so much that can be done. So it is unfortunate that Jan Fiorillo does fail, to understand me at times, whether that be in text, language, or videos that have been done. In terms of comments being deleted, Jan Fiorillo, whether it be in that same comment what we saw today or a previous one elsewhere where Jan did respond back and say, Wrath, that is incorrect. I have not deleted any comments. Upon reflecting on that, in terms of the comment section only, that appears to be correct. It's just that at the time, when trying to find your comments, it was difficult because they just didn't show. Sometimes that's because YouTube may delete them. Sometimes YouTube may hide them. Sometimes they might be processed. Other times I might need to click the latest comment because that seems to reveal hidden messages, which is very stupid, and that's YouTube's fault there. But in terms of my language and wording, I did not categorically say it with an absolute fact of certainty, but that's exactly what Jan has done. As I said, is there a possibility? Could that have happened? And Jan, put her back up against the wall and started, going back, and it's like, just calm down. It's a little suggestion, not a massive claim, not a massive statement, just a suggestion. But Jan Fiorillo seems to contradict herself within that same long paragraph by saying, well, no, not in the same paragraph, but when you compare it to a previous one. If Jan says, I never delete my comments, and they just don't get deleted in general, they're all there. And then now Jan is saying, WarLike Wrath is deleting my comments. But you said that your comments aren't deleted. So from when you said it then till now, what has changed in between? Why have you suddenly gone from saying my comments aren't deleted to, yes, Wrath, you're deleting my comments? What, just because I incorrectly said that maybe Jan is deleting her own comments simply because I just couldn't find them at the time, then it turned out that they weren't deleted. It's just that sometimes YouTube hides them, or it's just not that easy to find all the comments because they can be all over the place, sometimes not directly in response to somebody, sometimes not always in the correct thread order or response, sometimes not on the same video, it could be on an outdated video compared to a new video, upon trying to keep up with everything else and viewer requests and much more. We can't just sit down and spend 12 hours on just one person all the time. We can't just babysit and baby feed someone all the time. There's bigger things at hand. Noah Presgrove case. Oh, completely forgot about that. You see the way it can go? What we're seeing, and I'm not saying there's lots of people, okay, but there are certain named individuals and a few other additional people too over time from the light side, from the army page, or once the army page, and maybe some team Caden Pressey supporters that have a tantrum moment, throwing the toys out the pram, or being impetuous. Embarrassing behaviour at times. Any names mentioned? No. So don't try and twist it there. But individually, who was the last problematic person we came across? In terms of memorable names, and not exclusive, Michael Fazekaz. Michael Fazekaz that whinged, whined, and yapped on in an impetuous manner about my coverage on the case and style. Before or after that, we had Petty Pam as well. I believe Pam is on the same wavelength as Jan Fiorillo, or was at some point when communicating or interacting with another creator out there. It's just interesting because I know Pam has had some very questionable things to say to me. It's really, really, really extremely embarrassing in general when I look at it. When I think of low standard humans, and I'm talking in general there, with the mindsets, peasant-like mentalities, lacking that rich understanding, lacking that rich, common sense. It's almost as bad, if not just as bad, as the Dylan Roundson case community, the way that went. Like with her. It really is embarrassing. You got fully grown adults of a much older age and more experience, but the way they're acting at times makes you wonder. The levels of impetuism, the levels of egocentric behavior. Quite a few people with time like to mirror those words as a form of interactional synchrony towards me in a cute way, but it just doesn't work. People may just throw them about quirky keywords, but when I use keywords, when I use key lines, there is a meaning behind it, there is a depth behind it, there is a link to be established. A lot of people can throw stuff about and it lacks in meaning. They just do it because it's a degenerative trend or just because it sounds good, but that's about it. There's other levels of manipulative behavior, and we might as well go into it right now, that when you come to cases and communities, that some people can speak more formally, act more literate, more formal, their language and wording, typing and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's just done as a means of a psychological effect in trying to convince people to convey a message in an unnatural way. But other times the chessboard goes as in people can play the victim card without actually saying that they were a victim, without even using the words, but how they portray themselves in the moment. They could appear submissive, they could appear weak, they could appear formal or nice and try and twist it around to paint the actual victim as the bad one, the villain. But in my reality and how I've seen things go with time is that I can keep to myself, I can do my best 360 out of 365 days of the year, and those 5 days where slight mistakes are made, absolutely crucified at times, and it's absolutely embarrassing. And depending on how other humans are with time, depending on what the masses are like, and if they're vulnerable or not, they can be easily convinced. And the way I've seen the patterns go on YouTube with certain communities and certain audiences over time, the wool can be pulled over people's eyes, and it's very unfortunate to see. But I can be on the receiving end of some very questionable actions by very questionable humans, and then they have the cheek to act like the victim to try and pin and tarnish me and paint a dark picture of me in general. Is it clever behavior? No, it's just embarrassing. Because before it's even happened, I've anticipated that it would. And I made the prediction exactly in this particular case, when we had another creator out there that's been known constantly for harassing me, making false videos about me, using deep fake imagery of me without my consent and much more, threatening comments made about location being revealed, threatening comments made about sexual encounters with people in real life. Is that normal? The same said channel that's also there for covering the Noah Presgrove case, it doesn't quite correlate or run in parallel or complement one another, does it? But then Jan Fiorillo actually goes over to that channel. All that suggests is where people's priority at. Probably that someone like Jan Fiorillo and other people with time will put certain things aside because they don't see it as that big of a deal or because it just doesn't impact them. And I do understand that. See, within the Dylan Rounds case, there was many times that the typical side taking, should you have to pick a side, you should be able to go anywhere, any place, anytime. You should be able to support any creator, watch any video. You want to go over there? Go there. You want to go over here? Go there. But don't feel like, you're going to get punished if you want to try something else. If you want to listen to somebody else, you shouldn't have to be punished. You should be able to make your own choice. You're a viewer, you're an audience member. You have the choice yourself to do whatever you want and go wherever you want. And that can apply to Jan Fiorillo as well. But back then in the 2022 case, the way people were, certain creators like a cult leader, you can't go over there, very controlling behavior. The way I worded it was, if there's viewers on my channel that want to go elsewhere, you do what you need to do, no pressure, you're not going to get punished. But let me tell you something, if you get in my way whilst I'm trying to defend myself against other cretins out there and disease-ridden, wretched humans, if you get caught in the line of fire, that's tough shit, okay? That could apply here, but I've been extremely lenient when it comes to this case. But honestly, if I picked up on everything and analysed everything truly with human behavioural patterns and the psychological effect of people, just like what I did in 2022 to 2023 or so, if I applied that within the Noah Presgrove case, I would see a lot more, I would feel a lot more, and I would detest a lot more, and I'd be a lot more not so lenient. But I've been a very good boy this time round, but more precisely, I've not gone as deep. I've not analysed as much because the case has been so deep itself that I've been more focused and locked on with it, which is a true testament to Mr. Consistent in terms of the case itself. And the pettiness along the way has been actually put on the sideline more so this time. But you go back to the Dylan Rounds case and how I did things. Within a day, 2 to 3 videos, one drama, one defending myself, another one all about the case. I still had it under control, but I was doing a lot more videos to balance it out, to compensate for one or another. This time around, I've just flat out done videos about the case and then the odd little reference to defending myself. I've defended myself a lot less here than I had in the past. I should be able to defend myself when I need to and when I want to, but I've sacrificed myself for the case at times, and even when other humans and wretched disease-ridden, cancerous mindsets have tried overpowering me or pushing me away from the case, which is rather embarrassing. In regard to Jan Fiorillo, though, about a statement or a public comment elsewhere on a different channel, do I have a problem with that? I have no clue about it whatsoever. I'm not too sure what the hell Jan is going on there. In terms of my comparisons or my observations with time, all I've said is the way Jan Fiorillo is and how they've appeared in this case seemed okay in the past. Things have changed since, but they have also aligned themselves, pledged allegiance to other people in between. And just based off that physical, that mindset, that distance, that geographical placement elsewhere, digitally speaking, as for a footprint, what it's done is it's just going to show that psychological effect, what can happen on humans when you do go elsewhere. Whether you downgrade elsewhere, whether you upgrade elsewhere, how does it impact your mind, your personality and behavior? You say, but you stay true to yourself, but have you really stayed true to yourself? The ones in the Dylan Rounds case said, I'm leaving, I'm having enough. Oh, as for WarLike Wrath, I detest him. Really bad. Same false claims as well. And then say, I'm going to take a 3-month break. I'm going to take weeks off. And these other drama and this other conflict and these other people out there and this harassment in real life and the doxing and the swatting and this and that. Oh yeah, this community is so bad. We're walking away. We're leaving. 2 days later, they're back on the knees. 2 days later, they're back yapping on. They didn't stay true to themselves. They weren't consistent at all. What's really going on in their mindset? It applies here within the Noah Presgrove case as well at times. If you're going to leave, you're going to leave. If you've had enough, you've had enough, but you keep coming back. And as for who and you and what, it could apply to anyone, anything, any place, anytime, anywhere. No stats, no facts, no names, just in general, somewhat vague. People like to make it about themselves, and yet I've not even mentioned the names. Some people since have said, oh, I like your channel, Raf, but previously they've been a bit of a knob. Interesting. It is what it is. But it doesn't surprise me. Humans don't surprise me. Humans are predictable. Okay? Analyse humans for over 10 plus years. For true crime related stuff and communities, all kinds of characters with him. But in terms of Jan's behaviour, there's a level of selective hearing, selective vision, glasses or not. No funny bone, no sense of humour either on the sideline to cut through the darkness, just really focused in, locked in, a little bit stiff, but at the same time, oh yeah, I'll go to another creator out there that is known for harassment, known for threatening to sue people, even though there's no reason to do so. If you want to align yourself with someone like that, you want to align yourself with a sexual deviant or someone known for harassment, then what does that say about you as yourself as a character? If you're an upstanding person within the community, digitally or in real life, and you associate yourself with people like that, what's really going on? I would argue and say, and it doesn't apply just to one person, it can apply to others as well, because there are others as well. The third group is that with time, you may not be on the receiving end by someone, so you get on well with them and things are okay. As for other people elsewhere, in terms of what they're on the receiving end of, worse. Not going to have the same connection or understanding, that's understandable. But the individuals that are better off and are treated better off by a questionable person out there, that you may hear or see of the bad actions, what that person has done, but you may brush it aside and say, so what, it doesn't matter, it's not happened to me. It might have happened to other people, but it is what it is. I'm still going to work alongside with them or cooperate to some extent for a greater cause. I get that. So this is not putting words into Jan's mouth or Pam's mouth or some other people, but the suggestion is that there are people out there that might not like the style of or coverage of my channel on this case, the way it's covered, the way things are said, or how it's shown on screen, and the additional possible irrelevant stuff is that they go elsewhere to another place which does it better or does it in different ways and more hard-hitting and asking more sharper questions. But the catch is that person out there or a person out there, their behaviour on the sideline is very, very questionable, extremely questionable and quite dark. But you know what? We'll turn a blind eye to that because it's all about the case and that will work with the doubt. It's very questionable. You could be an upstanding person yourself, but then when you align yourself with other humans, it can drag you down to their level, hence why your own personality attitude changes and shifts with time. Linking back hence to the Dylan Rounds case, where you had viewers, ex-viewers and other people in between that may have come about here. They were a certain way, they went elsewhere, they pissed off, and then because of who they were around, those that they were around, those creators were just cancerous towards me. So obviously I had to defend myself at times and say what I've got to say, make valid points, observation, comparisons and whatnot. Conflict of interest with the viewers in between my channel and then going over to their masters or daddies over there, the cult leaders. But in the end, they showed their true colours towards me, turned on me, and I was like, okay, shame it wasn't done sooner than later. Get it over and done with, piss off, do what you need to do for yourself so you're better off, then we go from there. Cleansing in between makes me better off as well. At the end of the day, people can do the little fancy statements, long comments and whatnot, okay? Appear formal, may add a slight little undertone of backhand compliments, backhanded insults along the way. Oh yeah, I know exactly that. I've seen that myself, okay? But whilst that goes on, and while some people walk away, the way they give their final speech, it's as if, you know, you're a bad person, we're leaving, I'm leaving, I am leaving. I am leaving. I want everyone to know I am leaving right now. I'm leaving this channel. I want everybody to know this is very important. Just one person. It's just one soul. That's it. The next day, time moves on. One person comes, one person goes. The cycle continues on, right? In the Dylan Rounds case, you did have impetuous humans that were yapping on saying, oh, look, WarLike Wrath has lost 22 subscribers. My question is, how the hell would they know? Because they're not in charge of my channel. They don't have access to my statistics. So what are they on about? Unless they were using Social Blade, which is a website out there, which isn't always accurate whatsoever. So really desperate behavior there, clutching at straws. But it was like an argument, evolutionary competitiveness, where it was, right, let's see the subscribers. Oh, he's lost 22. Oh, he's failing. See, you know, we're moving shit, we're jumping aboard, going elsewhere. I lost 22 subscribers supposedly. I gained 50,000 views a few days later. Oh no, what am I gonna do? It really isn't the end of the world. It's just a case of natural selection. That is it, right? So when it comes to the Noah Presgrove case, whilst I'm dashing about here and there, really, over time, I've seen and what I've encountered, and this is just my own individual experience. This applies early on in the case, okay? This doesn't just apply in recent time with the dark side coming onto my channel. No, no, no. This applies from day one onwards till present day. Right, from then till now, the problematic people that I've come across, the levels of impetuous behavior, levels of delusionalism, levels of jumping the gun and making some very weird statements and observations about me, which makes more questionable stuff towards them than it does about me, and much more, is why it's been people from the light side and a hybrid crossover from the light side to the third group. The dark side, they are who they are. I've been lucky enough to not be on the receiving end compared to what maybe other people have experienced. That is unfortunate, of course. There could have been many times where bad things could have happened to me because I started on the light side first, but it just didn't happen. Oh, it didn't happen because it just doesn't exist, the true darkness in the dark side. Who knows? I can only base it off of my own individual experience, but I'm not going to dismiss other people. It's like a person could be raped by someone, and that someone does not rape me, but I'm not going to dismiss the victim who was on the receiving end. There'll be more concept behind it, but I'm just giving you a very rough, raw, hard example, right? But out of all of the trouble that I've come across, it's more so people from the light side. Does that mean to say that 100% of the light side is bad? No. It can be the minority. It is the minority, but it's just interesting how it's a bit of a contrast. It's just ironic, isn't it, that the most trouble that you have is with people on the good side, and that the people that treat you better are the ones on the dark side, that the devil treats you better than the angel. What's that all about? Not literally, but metaphorically speaking, it's just a bit weird. But then people's realities can be weird and don't quite make sense with one another. It's different over time. So it is what it is. But I'm sure if Jan Fiorillo was to watch this video, they may misunderstand it once again, and who knows what will happen next. But just the level of behavior in this case community, it was inevitable. It was going to happen anyway. It was going to go downhill anyway. I predicted it from day one, the moment I stepped in. Oh, are you being negative? WarLike Wrath? No, I'm being fucking realistic. I know how humans work with time. I know humans have a lifespan, a shelf cycle of when behavior is shown to when it transforms, shifts into something else, and where does it end at the end. I've seen very questionable behavior by people over time where I can be talking in general, talking about my own individual experiences, talking in general, completely about a different country. And then when I mention stuff, and then when people respond back after and say, why are you talking about me? How can I be talking about you when I never mentioned your name in the same sentence, nor the video at all? Makes no sense, does it? But the reason why humans, such as within the Noah Presgrove case, viewers, more so, as to who exactly, as to how many, who knows? But whenever it does happen, the reason why humans will associate what I say negatively, which applies to them as a label, a statement, or an observation, isn't because I'm mentioning their names, because I never do. It's because they doubt themselves. If I'm talking about twats and prats, and then a person comments and says, why are you calling me a twat? I didn't know your name was associated with that word or term. Never mentioned your name. You're making it about yourself. Are you making it about yourself because you're an attention-seeking one? Or is it just because you doubt your own ability and you subconsciously or unconsciously genuinely believe you are a twat, which I am not aware of? We can go over this over and over again, and humans still do not learn and do not learn their lessons. I've seen it over and over again through the different communities. I do what I say, I make my observations, I keep it somewhat vague at times, overt, non-participant, and people still manage to apply it to themselves, even when I'm completely in the dark about it. And not insults, but more so if I'm just talking in general. And it could be of being used, being screwed over, things going on behind one's back. And then it's like, oh, well, if you're doubting something that you're responsible for, please do tell me right now. Yes, open up right now. I'd like to know, because I didn't know before. I was completely in the dark. I was talking in general, but because it seems to hit a nerve with you, then maybe something does ring true. You've opened yourself up to that, haven't you? So I mean, humans don't learn. Now, what else is there to acknowledge besides that? Well, it's just petty behavior with time, and there's been less of that here than there has been in previous cases, because I've been more locked on with this case in particular. And along the way, there's been a lot of discussion videos. And why? Because once again, being honest, yet again, like I normally am, is there any breaking news? No. Is there any so much that can be talked about? Yes. Is it still controlled? Yes. And it's just interesting how at times when, you know, the really serious videos, the focus videos are made, the ones that are demanding, hungry, wanting it, they finally get it. Oh, now they don't want it. Oh, now they're not ready. Yeah, I've seen that in the past. One thing that I will say that is positive is that the way people pissed about in the Dylan Rounds case when I had very important videos, it was very disheartening to see, you know, really important findings and analysis. People pissing about at times, unfortunate. No, Presgrove case, a lot better, a lot more focus, right? And I would say that both the light side and the dark side take it in, but as we've seen in recent time, the minority from the light side haven't quite understood where I'm coming from at times, and it's gone downhill there. So, who knows what's going on with Jan Fiorillo? I've noticed a psychological effect in changing their human behavioural patterns, and who knows where it will lead to next. And it's not just Jan, it can apply to other people as well, but obviously this video is more focused, and because of her comments and mentions about WarLike Wrath deleting her comments. I've never deleted her comments. I wouldn't want to delete them, because I want people to witness what Jan has to say, whether it's the truth or complete bollocks, right? I want it to remain public. And as well, when there's been times in the past where humans have insulted me, when humans have called me a retard, and there's been several occasions where humans have said, is WarLike Wrath autistic and that fucked up in the head? I've kept all those comments publicly viewable so other humans can witness it over time, and if the comments need to be reported, well, they can be. But it just goes to show that words like that are much more and much worse aimed my way, and the comments still remain up. Not the end of the world, is it? But there is still freedom of speech, even if people at times try and abuse it on me on my own channel. But as well, what I do find interesting is there's been some times where people jump the gun and say, yeah, you're either deleting comments, WarLike Wrath, or you've blocked me. How embarrassing when humans say, WarLike Wrath, you have blocked me. You have literally left a public comment on my channel, which I can see and hundreds and thousands of others can see. You are not blocked. It's that simple. But people jump in at the deep end. And when it comes to comments being deleted, even though they haven't been by me, but YouTube can be responsible at times. YouTube have deleted my own comments. Oh, yeah. But the way humans dive in at the deep end, just like how people have done within this case and community at times, more so from the light side than the dark side, because I've not actually come across someone from the dark side come at me and yap on saying, why are you deleting my comments? Why are you blocking me? It's just people from the other end or from in between that yap on the minority. And it's just interesting. The way I interpret it is, if humans that know me for some time have the cheek to accuse me of this or that, then clearly they don't think much of me in the first place and there is no trust. Okay? If you've been around for a certain length of time, you should know how things work and how things go, that you shouldn't be doubting me in places. It's okay to doubt me, but as soon as you do that, and have known for some time, then it makes me question them as well. Okay? But it also makes me question people's mental capacity and understanding and common sense. There are additional factors at play as to why something may not be present, why something may not be visible, why something may not be working in the moment. There have been times where comments have been spammed, but it can be because of an error or glitch. It happens. But then you've got the exception of Michael Fay's cards that spammed hacking-like messages in the live chat. What Michael Fay's Kaz did at the time was infantile-like behaviour, and if one was to call out the dark side for their behaviour and actions, well, Michael Fay's Kaz lowered himself to like how other people would act. Not being a better person, but lowering yourself, which just doesn't help yourself, doesn't help long-term, makes a mockery of things. Yeah. Humans are undoing themselves now. Things are unraveling now. Groups, communities are showing true colours now in the minorities, which could spread with time. Recently, even though I don't participate much at all now, but on the main Reddit page of Noah Presgrove, a post came about by Excellent Spite. And I find it rather interesting, the actual context of it, the conversation behind it, the admin or mod that could do something like that, post something like that, which does not solve the case, but it's still up for discussion, has the same cheek to possibly take down some of my videos because they're just not deemed worthy of conversation, but they're absolutely about the case, and there is a link to be established. It's absolutely embarrassing, and you know the context behind it. But basically, Excellent Spite, out of spite, no, not literally, it's just more of a play on words that, but Excellent Spite just did a post on Reddit in regard to a life update screenshot photo capture from Facebook to do with Jack Newton, Carter Combs saying that they're going to travel the world and explore it, make the most of life. That's their own individual experience and what they're going to do, right? I can understand the context of posting it because it's like, well, these people who are a part of the case are going on, living their lives, living their best life, but then someone like Noah Presgrove can't because he's not around, but these people that can know more but aren't cooperating enough on the surface level or with Noah's family, and yet they've got the cheek to be able to go off, enjoy themselves, but Noah can't. How dare they do that? That's basically, I'm not putting words into anyone's mouth, but that's how you can interpret it. I get it, I do. But in terms of having a page which is about Noah Presgrove, justice for Noah Presgrove, solving the case, trying to figure out answers, analyse, compromise, compare, figure out what's going on, who could be responsible, who has answers. Oh, by the way, let's focus in on Jack Newton, Carter Combs' relationship update in regard to them exploring the world. Let's next time round get some like photo stamps and postcards and post them on the Reddit page about where they've been and what they're doing. Because it's all about Noah Presgrove and it actually solves the case. No, it doesn't. What discussions come from that? Nothing, because I looked at the comments. There was not much. There wasn't really any criticism either. But oh, if WarLike Wrath does a video where he focuses in on Caden Pressey and looks at discrepancies, and when that's posted on Reddit, oh, that's not deemed discussion worthy enough or relevant to the case because it might cause some drama and it's a personal attack on Caden Pressey and it's not good, even though there is balance. But by the way, we'll allow people to post, especially if they're the admin mod of a page in charge, where they can post about people going on holiday. How does that solve the case? How does that link to the case? Going on bloody holiday, going around the world. That's just petty behaviour at the end of the day. See, there would be an exception there, as in, right, you post it, fine, fair enough. But when humans have the cheek to silence me, when what I do is just as relevant, if not more, but people pick and choose, pick and choosing, double standard, one-sided tunnel vision type, hypocritical mentality, it's cancerous. And it needs to be acknowledged. So that's just a little example there. In the past, people were obsessed with the Carter Combs, Jack Newton relationship status, but there was a bit of meaning behind that. Whilst there might not have been enough context with hard evidence, it was valid at the time, and I could understand why other people would be going on about that. The relationship status between Jack Newton and Carter Combs is more relevant to the case than the likes of those two going on holiday around the world. The only exception where it would bridge the gap if those two individuals were to go around the world a few days after Noah Presgrove's death, because then you could say, well, they're trying to get away and escape, lay low. I'd get that. But enough time has passed by now, if anything was found in between, and not much action has been taken. So it's not as linkable. But the relationship status was, in the earlier days, was because they supposedly broke up or split, or at least digitally online, that's how it was announced, the status situation, and supposedly locally, that the wedding was postponed or just called off at the time. People were interpreting that as, oh, maybe one knows more than the other, one's dragging down the other person, or one has had enough because they found out what the other person has done or is responsible or knows what happened to Noah Presgrove. And if you're friends with Noah Presgrove, you feel betrayed by the trust of someone else you've looked into, they didn't open up to you. So basically, things break down, and you might protect yourselves, you might go behind each other's backs or separate when you're in a relationship because you've got your own little lawyers, attorneys, you've got to protect yourself, what you know of, you don't want that cross conflict. There might be some exceptions where they said, well, once people get together, seal the deal, become married, then things change as for who could rat one another out or how people could be protected or worse off. I don't know the ins and outs about that completely from my memory, but, you know, if the communication broke down, you were close with one another, now you split, and it's to do with the ongoing case and investigation. You could say, oh, have the split because of truth coming out, one knows more, one's found out about the other person's involvement in Noah's death and they don't want to associate them with any more. Kind of like how we focused in, or how other people did with Kate and Pressy, breaking up friendship with Jack Newton and then a knock-on effect with the other party goers, but it wasn't all down to Caden Pressy himself. It was influenced by the mom, Alicia Lee, that wanted Caden to distance himself from Jack because they thought it was a negative influence. And it makes you think that was there any other levels of control or factors in between which caused Caden Pressy to, in a way, indirectly distance himself, or people distance themselves from Caden Pressy. The friends gone, connections gone, that time lost because of a third-party person or a guardian or a parent looking out for Caden, but actually backfiring and going wrong. And did that have any influence with the JJ Bumpers and the Caden Pressy situation there where they had to part ways? Right? The relationship status, the relations with different people with time, conflicts, misunderstandings, or learning the dark truth about someone, and it's tied within a case, and these people are all tied within a case. You could link it together, I understand now. But when it talks about going on a holiday, riding a camel, going to a pyramid, how are you going to link that to the Noah Presgrove case? Oh, Jack Newton, Carter Combs, go to Egypt, go to, where about in Egypt? I don't know, just go to the pyramids. Oh, you're going to go to the top, the Sphinx. You're going to go inside the tombs. You're going to find King Tut. Talk to some ancient aliens and try and figure it out with the massive forehead and think, oh my God, ancient aliens, missing 411. These aliens from Egypt have gone over to the US and have kidnapped Noah Presgrove, took his shoes and then dumped him on the side of the road. And when Noah Presgrove was dumped from the UFO to hit the ground, that's what caused him to splat and cause injury and die that way. And then the aliens took blood samples of Noah Presgrove, sucked it out of his body, and then went off elsewhere and then cloned him on another planet of Mars. Come on. Get a grip of yourself. What's going on there? This is what I mean. This is what's actually happened. Well, not that example, but just as in one rule for one rule for another. Key words from this case and community to take from: jumping the gun, impetuous, easily pleased, Chinese whispers, light side having some abnormalities in minorities of problematic people, third group forming band of misfits, other people of high standards associate themselves with the misfits, lowering their own standards and IQ to an extent, dark side truly not the absolute dark side, but there is some positives within it. Yeah, there's contrast to what you see with time, that the contrast, but the comparison symbolism of this all, light side versus dark side, but the dark side aren't as bad as what they are, but the light side aren't as innocent as they are at times. But the light side at times may have been more pushy towards the ideas and theories of a certain outcome with Noah Presgrove or who's responsible, and whilst that should be understandable and respected, some abnormalities of minorities within the light side have pushed it a bit too hard in an unnatural way, and that's not helped whatsoever, and forcing things along the way and adding unnatural stuff too. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's just not good. People changing the words from a theory to a fact. Have I seen that with the dark side the same way? Not as much. But this is what I mean. Depends what communities and pages you're on. If the army page, if the case discussion page or justice page had everybody all together and no one was ever kicked or blocked, as loud and chaotic as it would be, you would see it from both sides in the moment in one place. It'd be easier to track and monitor. Then you get a more full understanding perspective. Whilst that never happened, it can be applied on my page. So that's something at least that does need to be acknowledged. But yeah, quite a few key words going about as I learn about this case and more so the community. I would say, yes, it has been quite the case, and in fairness, the way the victim's family has gone about it, but they do things the way they need to, of course. You know, can't expect them, or they don't owe us that much or don't owe me whatsoever, and that's perfectly fine. It's like with you know, this is what I mean. Even when I do balanced videos, and even if I do look at the victim's family or look at friends and look at the darkness there, just to get that full understanding, that for and against arguments, that yes, when I do those videos, even if they are a little bit sensitive, not at one point do I expect people to respond back, you know, positively. You know, like if people are on the receiving end or being questioned when I do my videos, I don't expect people to respond back positively. I don't have any expectation like that. I don't have any expectation to be respected either. But then it does end up happening, and then it is positive, and then it is a nice surprise. In terms of the general public, though, how some of them can act at times, it's just a little bit odd, a bit unusual. But once again, at times, sometimes biggie yappers, especially on YouTube, you know, do they act like that elsewhere? What, in real life? No, just like online in other pages and groups, because, you know, if you're covering a true crime case, you come across knobheads, right? And then the case comes to an end, and then you move on to a different case. And they move on as well. Same one or a different one. How did they act? Memory refresh, goldfish mentality, clean slate, act all innocent, kind and godly. How embarrassing. I've seen that myself. But it just so happens that when I go onto a different case, if the same people follow in the same direction, if they were a twat then, they're still a twat now. And I'll make it very clear when I do my videos, because I don't want a twat infesting or infecting another case out there down the line. And I know some cretins had the, you know, audacity to actually joke about a missing person case and say, well, because WarLike Wrath has covered it, we will go over to that case and cause a mess. How embarrassing and pathetic. It never happened, but just imagine if it did. And some of those same said individuals with that same mindset actually went on to the Presgrove case short term. Will people know who I'm referring to? Who knows, but long-time viewers should. How embarrassing. But through natural selection, through stamina warp, people just backed down. That's what happens. It just does. Has karma come along the way? Yeah, for once. I saw it with one individual. But to what extent? Who knows? Maybe karma catches up when you're not in the presence of someone, but if you're not in the presence of someone, then you're not going to know if it happened or not, which is unfortunate. But I think when you get disease-ridden areas, they do need to be cleansed, or at least awareness needs to be spread, because they might act nice elsewhere or someplace, but in the moment, they're not. And, you know, I'd rather someone be completely dark and evil than come across someone that, you know, morphs, transforms in and out of positive to negative, nice, kind, and then cold and snappy and all over the place, can't keep up with it. But, you know, this is just the psychological analysis onwards, okay? You know, I don't type long comments or paragraphs. I just do it with my mouth in the videos. There might be some subtitles somewhere, but, you know, if people have got a language barrier issue with me, I don't think the subtitles will help whatsoever. Maybe I talk in a different language, that could help at times. But I think Jan's comments is what it is. There's been a change in human behaviour, but there has been with other people too. there could well be people from the light side that have transitioned on to the dark side. Not that they would claim that they have themselves, but like Justin Roy, in his mindset, have labelled some people from the supposed light side transitioning onto the dark side, which just basically means if you're on the light side, you have to be a prisoner and you're not allowed to talk, communicate. You're not allowed to agree with anyone on the dark side. That when WarLike Wrath, because I'm just using my memory here roughly, when WarLike Wrath liked a comment by someone on the dark side, just only because they mentioned something positive about my channel, whilst of course in the same sentence they were mentioning negatives about someone else, which is obviously unfortunate. I was just simply acknowledging the comment for the positive stuff they said about me. But then I was interrogated afterwards. And this is what I mean, the way some humans act in this case. Some act like the chain of command. Some act like private investigators. Some act like a head mistress. Some act like some kind of stepmom pulling the ear and saying, I need to tell you off. You know, we need to have a talk. Who the hell are you? Weird. Unusual. But it happens with time. See, in the Dylan Rounds case, you had someone that dressed up as a complete gorilla. They were wearing a gorilla costume, they had a whip, they had a banana. Unusual, but different. Who's dressed up this time? Just seems to be sheep's and wolf clothing, and that's about it. That's unfortunate. But, you know, things happen. I will look at alternative videos and areas to cover within this case. Of course, there's only so much that can be covered. If there's any like breaking news or viewer request, clear ones, then I'll take that in mind. And now Jam Sandwich mentioned something about Mikey Lair, 3:30, being asked to go back, or mentioned about did you go back at 3:30 to get your phone? I'm not too sure what that's all about. A reference to Brookbound Carter's comment, some kind of discrepancies. It's a bit mismatched and all over the place. If clear context can be explained from point one to the end, or like a URL link to the video at hand, or where the comment came from, or a screenshot, that it'll go a long way, and then I can definitely do a video about it. I know, I think Micheline mentioned something about Noah's, it might not be Micheline, it could be somebody else, that supposedly hid Noah's phone under a fridge on purpose. What? What's going on there? There's some weird, unusual stuff going on. But I think we'll leave it there for now. Hopefully you find the video somewhat interesting. If you want to share it, that'd be appreciated. Catch up on recent videos, top right corner of the screen, I symbol there, comment section down below. My name's WarLike Wrath. I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.